Hello everyone. Welcome to the ARINGO Coffee Chat series. This is episode 3 for the same, and we are very happy. We are thrilled that you have joined us. Today, we would be talking about the topic that keep a lot of ambitious MBA candidates up at night. So, your MBA options with low or no GMAT. So if you've been stressing over your GMAT test score, or even considering that, even if if you even need it for your MBA application, so this is this session that is meant for you. So today I'm Priyanka, and from Aringo MBA Admissions Consulting, and with me is our CEO Jen. Hi Jen, we're so happy to have you again.
Hi, thanks for hosting their coffee chat. I'm so excited. This is such a big deal, right? The GMAT, GRE exam, so much anxiety around it. And so I'm glad that we're talking about it.
Yes, and it's a very common question among all the MBA candidates. So before we start with this topic, Jane, I want you to make us understand, and everybody here understand that with time, in the current admission landscape, has the weightage of GMAT GRE changed? The importance that's been given to this test score has been changed with time. Do you think there has been a shift?
Yeah, I think there is a shift in general. I mean, it's still an important part of the entire puzzle, but I do think that committees, probably in the past 5+ years have been much more orientated towards crafting a class or curating a class and making sure that not only do people have the aptitude for the curriculum that is rigorous and will be teaching you so many different things, but it's also they're looking at what background you have, where you're coming from, what economies or different industries that people are representing. And so I think that that's the important part for the admissions team. So it's one piece of the puzzle, the GMAT and GRE score, but it's not a gatekeeper that maybe it once was, where everybody had to have like the highest GMAT score and that's who got admitted. So it's a little bit different these days. And so it's one myth that is, I guess we could call it semi-busted, right? Like you still have to have a solid score, but it doesn't mean it has to be the highest score. And then some schools even offer waivers. So, and we'll jump into that, right?
Yes, we will. So okay, so that's encouraging. I mean, the shift, and there is a logical reason, why it's been happening. So before we move ahead, I want to let all the attendees know that after this session, towards the end of this session, we would be giving some offers, exciting offers, as we always do. So be with us till the end. And secondly, as Jen mentioned initially, that we will also be having AMA. So you can ask anything related to this topic, or any of the question that you have pertaining to your test scores or MBA applications. Just type in your questions in the chat box, and towards the end, in the last 10, 15 minutes maybe, we will take up those questions. Okay. So coming back, let's dive in. So Jenifer, can you tell me, and to all of us basically, that what is considered as a low GMAT score, say for top 20, 30 schools? So what score is low, and how one can offset, and what one can do about it?
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess low is relative to the specific school and what their typical class profile range is, right? Like, so, and I'll just say this is that we usually say that an admissions committee can generally go 50 points above or below their average. So just kind of keep that in mind, right? Like that even if it is low for that school, then it can still be admissible. So the typical low GMAT for the top 20 to 30 MBA programs might be a little bit different than what it would be for like the M7. So that typical range is below a 700 or on the old GMAT, or 645 on the new GMAT for some of these top 20 MBA programs. But that can also be offset, right? So I would say that like there's a high GPA, prestigious work, or maybe alternative ways of providing proof of your quantitative readiness for the program as well. So yeah, hopefully that helps.
Okay, so we also see that with time, like as GR is also gaining popularity a lot for MBA applicants. So, and EA is another option that a lot many schools have started accepting that for full-time MBA programs as well. So, do schools see differently? If somebody has given GMAT, did not perform well, etc., opt for GRE or EA, if the school is accepting those scores as well, does the school see from a different lens to the candidate who has applied with a non-GMAT score?
So typically no. To be honest, the only time that there can be somewhat of a concern is if the industry typically requires a GMAT score as part of their employment or like their application process, right? And I think that that trend is kind of going away. But if you wanted to do investment banking, finance, and sometimes consulting, they will sometimes have you submit a GMAT score as part of your overall profile. But I've read many a times that people have been able to apply without them. So beyond that, the GMAT and GRE executive assessment, if they're accepting those scores, then they're kind of weighed equally at that point. And then, so people used to think that GRE was not something that was helpful, but it's also a little bit helpful right now because schools aren't ranked on GRE scores, so they have a little bit more latitude with the scores that they do accept. So like if things are not going well with the GMAT, try the GRE, and then I think that there's definitely like more of a chance of getting admitted with the GRE score, because in the end the school needs a score, right? Like to be able to give some point of reference to ensure that people are capable of doing the work. And that can also be similar with the executive assessment. But they need something as an exam for a barrier to entry. But the GRE can be a little bit easier than the GMAT itself. So admissions committees don't see them either way. What they want is whichever one you do the best in.
So GMAT, GRE doesn't matter. So far, it's good.
Yes.
All right. So because we're talking about not the high scorers, we're talking about low GMAT and no GMAT kind of options. So let's say if somebody gave the exam and has a low quant score. Okay. So can you suggest that how they can prove the AdCom that they still will be able to handle the academic rigor? Is there some evidence that can show that that can help them support this, that they have quantitative skills, some evidence to show what can they do to just avoid that?
Yeah. So when I talk to candidates that are in this situation, we start diving into what they do on a daily basis for work, or what they did do, or what they did during when they were in their undergrad. So there is evidence of this quantitative work that you can bring to the surface for the admissions committee, whether that's highlighting your grades in a specific quantitative class. And they're like looking at like accounting, if you've had finance, the like advanced calculus, like those types of mathematics, and maybe engineering courses that would also boost that quantitative work. But then also like in your daily job, like if you're working with metrics and making decisions based on that, or offering decisions, or using it to produce things, then you want to be able to highlight those experiences for the admissions committee to be able to see you're ready for the rigor. And if you show them that you're doing this on a daily basis, it makes sense, right? Like, and then maybe you're just not a great test taker, or, a lot of people have ADHD these days. And so like, it makes it a lot harder to sit and focus on the exam. So, one thing or another, they can maybe see where you could still be a really strong candidate. But maybe the GMAT score is just not really giving them that proof.
Okay, so yeah, so you have like multiple ways to show that evidence as suggested by Jen. So you can use that, if the
Yeah.
quant score not as you expected, or not at par with the class profile of the target school.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'm sometimes maybe that's not there, right? Like what do you do if it's not there, you don't have that, you didn't take those classes, you don't have to, you don't have to do this on a daily basis for work. So the other thing that I talk to clients about is finding ways to do it. And a lot of the times there's some online coursework or certificates that you can do that will help again show that quantitative. There's like MBA math, there's GMAT now has like a fundamentals course that you can take. There's some with like the UC extension courses where you can take some quantitative classes as well. um, Depending on the school, they could have different things that they have a preference for, but there's other ways of showing I have that experience or I have the capabilities, even though you might not see it on my resume. And so here's some evidence of that. Like the HBS core, that's another one that is, again, quantitative and going to be a bit of work. I would take it for credit to be able to show well, I said for credit, but like where you would receive a grade or to be audited. So that option gives a little bit more weight or credibility to it. But either way, right? Like if you take the coursework, I think you're still going to be in a good spot. But yeah, so I just wanted to throw that out there that there's still, like, if you don't have those things, like there's something else you can do to show the AdCom your capabilities.
Yeah, so we have both. I think the person has both the option. If he can demonstrate through his professional experience, or his past academics, that would be great. And if not, they have additional certificates, additional courses one can do, and that can give the evidence of your current academic readiness of to do an MBA program at this point in time. Let's come to the topic of waivers then. Let's talk about test waivers. So, can you tell us that which type of programs are most likely to give waivers, and what kind of candidates are generally who get those waivers? So, who you have to be to get those waivers?
Yeah, so some schools, even in that top 10, like Darden, um, I'm trying to think. NYU is another one that's like top 10, top 15, Cornell, Tepper. Like some of those top MBA programs are offering waivers. And so what they're looking for in exchange is that quantitative work or experience. You kind of need to prove that you have some sort of either experience or credentials to be able to warrant the waiver, which doesn't mean that you have to be like a scientific whiz or a mathematician or anything like that. You can still be, a marketing associate and be able to get this. But they do kind of give a little bit more weight to people who maybe have like a CFA or CPA or chartered accountant. Those things can carry some weight in this process. Another thing would be solid like management experience and growth in your career. That's like something else they'll give a little bit of credit to. But yeah, so there's definitely ways to get that waiver, prove your readiness for the program, and still get into top MBA programs without a GMAT score.
Yes, that's what we wanted to hear, and that's a good news. And everybody, I've also put in a chat. So we have a page on Aringo website where we keep updating the list of schools who offer test waivers. So I have just put that link in the chat. You can save that page and use it when you're doing your school research while applying. And you would also know from there that if the school is applying, is okay for the test waiver, what is the condition. Like Jen said, that the school might need some professional designations like CPA or CFA kind of, or maybe some specific conditions on your academic. You have to maintain a certain GPA in academics or in professional experience. So all those details along with the school details are there on this page, so you can just have it and keep it. Moving ahead, so there are two lingos that schools use. So some schools, Jenifer, they mention that they have test optional, and some says that they provide test waivers. So first, that everybody would want to know what is the difference between the two, and second, that if a school says that it has test optional, does it actually mean it's optional? Because therein people might be applying with score and without score. So is it something that a candidate strategically needs to do to, so that he is not in the in the rejection pool of the school?
Yeah. So so test optional essentially means that you don't have to request the waiver. And then if it requires a waiver, if they have a waiver, then that means that you need to apply for it or qualify for it. So, one of them is like the NYU Tech MBA. They are test optional. And so with that being said, you don't have to submit an essay about why you need a waiver or anything like that. You just submit your materials as is. But like, let's say Cornell is, they have a test waiver. And so there is a portion of the application when you go to submit it that is required for a statement of, this is why I feel like I should receive the exemption. And so, those are kind of two different ones. And I would even say there's another layer to this. Some of the waiver schools with test waivers do require that you submit the waiver request ahead of your application, and it can either be granted or denied. And so you don't even have to submit the application, pay the fee before you know if they're going to accept the waiver. And now, genuinely, most of these programs will also say, like, if you've been granted the waiver, they are going to evaluate the same as somebody else who is admitted or is applying with a score. So, they're saying you're kind of on even footing because of the credentials that you came and you provided. But there's some other ways to kind of discern whether you should or shouldn't do that. But should I keep going, or do you have other questions
No,
that you want me
I
to
want to.
answer?
So I have one question as you're speaking. I just thinking that. So if it's options, let's say it's a test optional thing, the school that one person is applying, and let's say the candidate has a low score. So what should be the strategy? He or she should anyway submit the score even if it's low, or he should not submit at all and apply with a test optional option, because I think there's some checkbox on the application form that one has to tick if you are going for the test optional.
Oh, so what I would say is I would not submit the score. So once you submit a score to a school, you cannot be considered for a waiver. They have to report it to the ranking board as part of their process. So
Mhm.
if you, and then I have some people that I speak with along the way that they just went ahead and submitted the score after the exam, even though it was pretty low. Don't do that, because yes, you would have to pay later to send the score, but it's worth it to not have it necessarily written down, if maybe, or like on record, if the school is then offering a waiver. And that changes from year to year. So, if you're doing this ahead of time and you are like, okay, I still have another 6 months to take it again, but like maybe if it doesn't get there, then the school still has that lower score and you can't apply with a waiver. So I feel like I went in a rabbit hole, and I don't know if I answered your question. I'm trying to, did I answer
Yeah,
it or did I not?
yes, yes. So I think the crux is, if you have a low score and the school has a test optional option, don't apply with the low score, because once you send the score, we cannot undo it. It's there on this system. Okay, so don't do that. If you have a low score, don't apply with the score. Then apply for the test option if that's an option for you. So I think that's the that's the
Yeah.
gist of it. Coming to the waiver process, Jennifer. So I think different schools would be having different process of how to apply a waiver and what is needed to apply for a waiver. Is there an essay? Is there just skill sets, or is it something else? And it is pre-application or it is while application? What is the process? Can you help us with that? What's the general process? I'm guessing different school would have different, but what's the general idea?
Yeah, so this is generally how they go. So first is determining eligibility.
Mhm.
So does the candidate, check the boxes for the specific school waiver, and making sure that they have, what they're asking for. If it's 5 or more years of work experience, or demonstrated quantitative background, like certification, CFA, CPA, CA, a strong GPA in a STEM background or a heavy quant major, is sometimes one of those check boxes, or an advanced professional degree, like if you have your master's degree, and then other terminal degrees such as a JD, MBA, or PhD. So first, that's the first thing that you want to do, is make sure that you're eligible for it. And if there's a question, a lot of times they'll have an FAQ section, or you can always email, and say, like, my major is but isn't STEM. Like, I want to know if this works or not. And they will be happy to give you that direction. And then the formal request for the waiver. So again, like,
Mhm.
sometimes it's just part of the application. You tick the box for the waiver if it's test optional, and you submit the application as is. Other times it requires a formal waiver, either ahead of submitting your application or as part of the application. So you're submitting it all at one time. And I think,
Mhm.
like, that's a pretty fair assessment. Like, when the schools say, like, you need to submit your entire application, so they get the entire picture you before they grant the waiver, right? Like, I think that that's a fair way of doing it.
Okay.
And then well, I guess I said the last part for the candidate is going to be writing, some sort of justification essay. And so this is where you're going to put those credentials, so to say, of, this is why I'm eligible for the waiver. Here are the things that I can demonstrate and show you that prove my readiness for the program. And you get that chance to really present your case versus them just inferring it from a resume or your transcript. You get to, paint this picture for them, and that's really like your sales tool there. And then the AdCom will review it and then give you a decision. So there are some schools that will give you a decision on the waiver again before you submit the application. So then you know whether you want to finish the application and submit it. And then other schools will give you the decision for the waiver with the decision for the school, like interview, no interview, that kind of thing. And in those caveats, like, so you may be invited for interview, but then potentially be waitlisted, and that means that they want a test score to be able to move forward to the next step. And then some of them will just ding you. Never the fun part to talk about with admissions, but sometimes they'll say no, it's not enough. And so then you have your answer. But yeah, so in the end, it's kind of like a mini application that you have to go through, really present your case, and hopefully the admissions committee can really see that you're ready for the program.
Okay, so yeah, so I think the idea is to, if you are in doubt, check with the school and check their entire application process, the waiver option process, and check the eligibility and everything. You have to do all this thing before you click the submit button of your application submission. You just ensure that if you're applying with the waiver or option, you have everything in place beforehand. Great. So let's talk about Jenifer, the candidates. So who have a low GMAT score or who are applying with the test optional or test waiver the process. So what is that non-GMAT part of their application that they have to strengthen? Their candidacy. What is that part they have to work on the most?
Yeah, and so that's going to be your essays and your recommendation letters, right? So I think that an admissions committee, when they're looking at the entire profile, they're looking at multiple things, like we kind of referenced in the very beginning. But first, they want to, one, make sure you're qualified. Two, they want to make sure that you are a good fit for their program. They want to make sure you have the right experience, and that your goals match what they can kind of provide to typical candidates as far as like job or career outcomes. So when they're putting that all together, your essays are your argument, right? Like they are the chance to really shine and show who you are. And the recommendation letters are going to reaffirm that, and maybe provide additional perspective. And so like, I would say like, that's kind of like where ARINGO comes in. Like we help, like that's the whole part of ARINGO. We were started 20 years ago by a Wharton alum who got in with a 650. And he was like, it's more than the GMAT score that's part of this process. And so we really need to figure out how to pull out those unique bits and pieces about you and your profile to really make you stand out compared to the rest of the candidates for the school. So yeah.
So yeah, so I think essays, your LORs, your resume, so everything you need to focus more to get your application as strong as the pool that you're competing with. So that's the whole story here. So as you mentioned, so Aringo specializes in candidates, in people who are applying with a low score. So can you just also help us with the thing that what Aringo does, for what is the first step that we take when somebody comes to us with a low score, how we strategize his or her application process?
Yeah, so we have the client fill out a background document, so we get to know them quickly, and there's a lot of like questions about what you've done, what you've accomplished, like what has been your greatest accomplishment, different things about your background, family business, all these other points, right? So we get that document and we send it over to our strategy team, and they're going to do a roundtable analysis. And they're going to say, okay, here are the things that we think that the admissions committee is going to resonate with. And these are the things they're going to like. And then these are the things they're going to be concerned about. And here is how we combat it, right? So again, like how do we offset this risk that the committee feels when looking at your application, and how do we offset that? So, and then they'll also talk about like how to pitch your short-term and your long-term goals, again, as it relates to any sort of deficit that you might have and how that connects and makes sense for you to go to this MBA program and be able to be successful beyond. And so that's kind of that initial part of our process before we even kind of start working on any part of the application.
Yeah, and as I know that, we have quite a list of successful candidates, since the time GMAT waiver has started becoming an option. We have people getting into schools without a score and even getting scholarships as well. So it's a mix of everything that we have. So it's not that without a score you cannot get into. So Jennifer, the people getting low score or people, who are applying with test waivers, we generally see that those candidates are slightly low on confidence, because they know some part of their application is missing and other are applying with it. Okay. So any advice, any piece of advice that you want to give to those candidates, that what that can increase their conviction in their own application, what should they do?
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing is not to let it ruin your confidence. And remember that the score is just one part of the puzzle that the admissions committee is going to be looking for. And that's why they have essays, right? Like that's why they have recommendation letters. All of this is here so they get to know you and you can kind of prove yourself through these different parts of the application. And it's up to you to really do that. And that takes some reflection, right? Like you need to take the time, inventory what you've done, what you've accomplished, discuss it with, I would say, maybe not your best friend because you know that they're always going to love you, but find somebody, a colleague or something to kind of say like, if you don't work with an admissions consultant, find somebody to kind of say like, okay, is there anything extraordinary here that you're seeing from my story that you think like it like pops out? or any common themes, those types of things. But, get some perspective and realize what are the unique things that you've done or accomplished.
Okay, so yeah, don't be sad. You can still apply, have confidence in your
Yes, don't be
application.
sad.
Yeah, don't be sad. Okay, so that's now those are some very practical and helpful advice, Jennifer, that you have given, and we would want to start with the AMA session. So you can all start typing in your questions. Before we start with the AMA section, and while you are typing, I wanted to tell about the offers that I discussed initially that we want to give to all the attendees and people who have registered for this session. So one is that if you're not sure that you should apply with a waiver, or if you have a low GMAT score, you are not sure if the score is worthy enough to apply, or you should go for a test option. Get your profile assessed with Jen. Okay, Jennifer, can you please help us with your calendar link
Yeah.
from the PPT? So, you can schedule a session with Jen for a free profile evaluation, and she can help you assess that whether your score is good enough or your profile is strong enough so that you can apply with a test waiver or test option. So this is one thing that we want to offer. Second is that we are also giving 15% discount to all the candidate, the registrants, attendees, on our comprehensive application packages, the full school packages, and also on our hourly services as well. So in case you want to proceed with ARINGO services, this is something that you can avail. So those were the two offers, and we can now start with the questions. So Jen, while people are typing in the questions, I have some questions that they have already sent to me in past. So
Awesome.
the candidates have questions that they have like high years of experience, like 8 years of managerial experience, etc. So should they apply with a test waiver? Should they just not give the test and apply with a test waiver, saying that they have enough experience, to apply for that or to be granted for the waiver?
Yeah, so it's hard, right? Like, I think it actually just depends on what type of work experience you do have. So being able to say like, oh, I have 8 years of being a journalist might not be enough. But if you're an analytical journalist, that might be something different, right? Like, so you need to give them the context to be able to make that decision. And so I would, recommend, like, if you do have 8 years of work experience and it's managerial with some sort of quantitative side to it, yeah, absolutely. Go ahead and, apply with the waiver or test optional.
Okay. Another question that we have got that with the balance of the score. Okay, so some candidate have a great verbal score, but maybe not so great quant score. So should they, apply with the waiver, or should they do something to support their quant readiness? Or say it's the other way around. They have a good quant score, but not so good verbal score because it's a feeling that they have that there's a lot of schools look at their quant score, etc. So do they still, should apply if the balance is not in place?
Yeah. So again, like, I think like it's one of those things. Like, if you feel like the balance is too far out of, um, if it's too out of a line, then maybe it is worth taking that extra step of getting a course under your belt. And it can be as easy as MBA math, right? Like, it doesn't, so just so everybody knows, like, MBA math is a course that even some MBA programs have you do at the start of the MBA during orientation or before you arrive for orientation, but it's modules that you go through and you complete. Now, what's not amazing about it is that it's not necessarily graded and there's no maximum number of times that you can take it. So, like, retake the class. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you've 100% mastered it, because you could technically, work your way around to getting the certification by taking it multiple times. But it is something to show, one, that you need to do, like, you've done the work, you've put in the work of studying and getting the classes done. And it has that effort to it as well. So should you take a class or something to balance it out? I think it depends on how far your profile is one way or the other. If you have great work experience, you have that quantitative side, just not the score, then I think it's probably okay to go ahead and apply. Now, let's also be honest that there are some applicant pools that are much more competitive than others. And so if you are coming from a very competitive applicant pool, and you're applying with a waiver, you definitely have to be exceptional for the waiver to go through and to be admitted compared to a large group of people who have a lot of the similar background, and represent the same country, industry, that type of thing. So, again, like figure out what those things are. And if it's taking a class or, you know, doing something extra, then I definitely do it.
Okay, yeah. And if you're in doubt, please have this evaluation done with Jen, because
Mhm.
it's more easier to evaluate when we have the actual profile, when we have the actual score, and it's more concrete to answer such questions. So we have some questions here, Jennifer. So first is from Henry. Hi, Henry. If my GMAT score is below the average for my target school, and he's targeting top 15 schools, should I retake it or focus entirely on strengthening my essays?
Um, Again, like I think that having the entire profile in hand is a little bit easier. But I would say, like, how far below average? I'm sorry, Henry, we're gonna have to have a chat. I'm sorry. But what I can say is, like, I think that depending on where these variables lie, how many years of work experience you have, if your GPA was, just on the like reference of like a US 4.0, if you had closer to like a 3.5 plus and a STEM background, then I think that that can definitely be helpful. But if those factors aren't there, then maybe retaking it is worth it. And like Harshal is like saying he has 8 years of work experience in the next question. When
Yeah.
we think about like when's the right time to take an MBA, if you only have 3 years of work experience and you're asking for a GMAT waiver, the AdCom could say you have time. Like you have another like 3 to 4 years of eligibility for a traditional 2 year full-time MBA program. So they may, in their mind, automatically say, you should probably just retake this and apply again next year, right? Like, but you can always, like, if you really feel like it's the year that you want, you can always still apply and potentially get waitlisted where they would ask you to take the exam. That's another option. But again, like, without all the details, that's my loose assumption.
So yeah, as Harshal is asking, 8 years of experience, I think now it's the average years of experience people are having. Uh, so so he has his preferred one of the preferred school has test optional, and a rival school maybe at the same level. Then another school offers a waiver. Is there a safer route? Is there a bias of one towards another?
Yeah, I wish that I could like answer that and be like, yes, go for this. But my question is, why not go for both? Like a great like, and maybe this is even it, but like the NYU Tech MBA is test optional. I think the Cornell Tech MBA requires a waiver. So I think, um, anyways, but like if that's the situation, I'm not sure why you wouldn't apply to both, because sometimes MBA applications are a numbers game too, right? Like you can't just apply to one school and hope that you're going to get into a top MBA program in the entire world. Like these are the top 20-ish programs throughout the entire globe. Like you're not applying to just a small local community college that you're hoping to get into. So hedge your bets. Like if you're going through this process, why not apply for them both? As far as which one will provide you the better outcome, I wish that again, like it sometimes it depends on the points on your profile, but if it's you're right there with the class average, then maybe the test, I mean, like maybe the waiver or test optional is more geared towards you, whereas other people may be applying with a GMAT score to the school that asks for a waiver.
Right.
That is, so like maybe there's more competition on that other side where people are more likely to actually submit a score than to ask for a waiver. So I guess that's your answer. Is test
But I think the best answer is apply to
optional
both.
is safer. And
Okay.
I had to talk through it, Priyanka. But and then the school with the waiver request is probably going to be the less safe one.
The more difficult one. Get it. So Henry has additional questions. I think we have answered, but he might want to know more about the preference of GMAT over GRE. Do the school, give preference, or is this something that one has to think about before choosing the test, GMAT or GRE?
Yeah. So I mean, honestly, like if you talk to any of the admissions committees, you go to any of the MBA fairs, anything like
Mm-hmm.
that, and like I think like GMAT clubs, MBA spotlights coming up in like about a week and a half. I think it's like the 12th, 11th, 12th. Sorry. We'll be there. Come visit. But like when you go to those schools, you can also ask them, right? Like in the chat and see what they say. But for the most part, they're going to say they don't have a preference for one or the other. The only time that it plays into it is if like maybe you want to go into finance, investment banking, those types of things where that field could require a GMAT as part of the application process for a job. Then like maybe that's necessary. So then the school is more of assessing not just your readiness for the MBA program, but then maybe your familiarity with the field that you're wanting to go into. So it's not necessarily a question of like, are you qualified for the MBA, but more of like, does this make sense with what your goals are? And some schools can say like, we don't care. You have a great GRE score. Fantastic. Come on in. So, in the end, they don't have a preference to one or the other. I mean, I usually tell people it's like sometimes you'll do really well in one and not good in the other. So it's really all about how you take a test, because they're different. They're the same knowledge and capabilities, but tested in a different way. So
Yeah, the same
even
thing
if you've studied
with
for the
us.
GMAT, like I still tell people to try to take a GRE just because, again, it's the same knowledge. It's not like you're studying a different question. It's how the test is given or administered that's different. So anyways, that's what I would say.
Okay, and so we have a question from Harshal also. Is it easier to get a GMAT waiver for EMBA as compared to a full-time MBA? So is there something that's there?
Yeah. So, okay. So, a few things. Executive MBAs, not as many of them require an exam in general, but if they do, the executive assessment is typically an option for you. Most executive MBAs require for you to have 8 or more years of work experience. Like
Mm-hmm.
Wharton, like this is an example for Wharton EMBA. If you want to apply with less than, I think it's less than 6 years, you have to apply with a GMAT score. If it's over, then you can take the executive assessment, because again, they're still testing your readiness for the program. And I think it's also a hurdle, right? Like to make sure that this is what you want, if you're applying to the executive MBA. But for the most part, it's definitely either going to be easier, like where the exam is already waived, or you can apply with an executive assessment compared to the traditional GMAT exam, which is like GMAT Lite. It's a 90-minute exam that's supposed to be based on your current business acumen, since typically executive MBA candidates are at least 8 to 10 years away from their bachelor's degree and haven't been in an algebra or quantitative classes in a while. So it's usually based on current business acumen.
Yeah, so yeah, Prince has a follow-up question. Hi, Prince. So when you talked about that GMAT or GRE, the school the admissions committee, they see from a same lens both the scores, but is he asking that the post-career path has an impact on the kind of test he's taking?
Yeah. So traditionally, and again, like I think that this is kind of on the downward trend, that a if you go into investment banking or consulting, sometimes they can ask for your GMAT score. They don't ask for GRE, they only ask for GMAT. And so that's something to kind of know when you're going into that. Like if you're wanting MBB, I would check with some current students. And that's exactly what I'm going to give as anybody's advice. Like if you want to go into investment banking or consulting, talk to the current students at that program for two reasons. One, they can tell you what the recruitment is like, if things are like still steady and they're hiring and recruiting on campus, etc. But then they can also tell you what's in the application itself for applying to those specific jobs. And if they are asking a required field of a GMAT score, or if it's optional, I looked at Wall Street Oasis to try to pick out the vibe and see what the new trend is. And a lot of people said that they left the question blank, still got their job, and it was fine. But I'm over here also being cautionary of like thinking about all angles of your admissions. So just double check that before you decide if you're going to apply for a waiver and pitch that you want to go in investment banking or MBB with a GRE instead. Again, I think that most of the time it's going to be absolutely fine, but it's one thing about like career awareness during the application process as well.
Right. So Prince, just to be safe, as Jen mentioned, do some networking before you apply. If your goals are investment banking, consulting, or maybe finance heavy roles, is that what you are looking at? Talk to current students, talk to alumni. You can even, I think, the adcoms, you can even reach out to them, I guess, Jenifer. And they're very responsive to the candidates, to the prospective students. I think, would they be able to help as well with these questions?
They could. I think that what they're going to do is tell you to pick it whichever one you want. I don't know that they're going to give you a decision one way or the other. Your best plan or best bet is to talk to somebody from the like direct route. Find somebody from the finance club or the consulting club, and they have their pulse on what's going, or their finger on the pulse of what's going on in recruitment, and they can tell you pretty quickly.
Okay, make that a note, Prince. That might be needed. Okay, so I guess, Jennifer,
Yeah,
towards the end of the session, we have taken questions. If you have more questions, and as Jennifer mentioned, that you can also, if there's a profile evaluation that you want to do, it's more easier and it's a more concrete answer that we can give based upon your profile, your score, and your MBA plans. As we mentioned, post MBA plans is also one of the uh, reason to decide on whether to take GMAT or GRE or not take test at all. So, we need all those information to give you a much more informed help. So yeah, so we have the calendar invitation here. We'll also send you the email of this recording and with all the details of Jen's calendar and everything. And yeah, you can take it from there if you want to have a session. Okay.
excellent.
All right, Jen. It was a great session. It was very helpful and very informative. Thank you for doing this. And we will come up soon with the next episode with new topic. And in case, you guys have some topic you want us to discuss, if there's something you want us to, take a session on, feel free to let us know as well. And we'll try to consider that too.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thanks,
All
Priyanka.
right.
Thanks for hosting. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thank you, Jen.